Good morning. Welcome to Investigator News, and it's Karen's birthday today. Our moderator, I don't know if she'll be here. She might be out partying all day. So a happy birthday to her. And don't worry, Karen. No, I'm not going to send you any monkeys, but Nick might. He's ornery like that. He might send you a barrel of monkeys. You might have to watch what comes in the mail with him. Does he know your address? Hopefully not. Well, I don't know. He might send you a nice, pretty card. So, but today is Karen's birthday. Happy birthday to a very dear and close friend of mine. Me and Karen's been friends for a very long time. So hopefully she eats lots of cake and a piece of cake for me too. So we're back to the special report, part 3. Where's the money? The reason you guys hear me ask a lot, where's the money? Well, today I'm going to start showing you why I keep asking. Because I want to know where all this money's going, especially today. Knowing what I've known since 2008, I definitely want to know where all this money's going to. They ought to open up the checkbooks and let us see. And let us see that it's going to the right, proper places and not to a military. So we'll get into that and a little bit on the news. Oh, boy. So Biden's... their team is responding to inflation. Some reports came out yesterday, and they're not talking about spending anymore, which is good. They're not going to spend our way to less inflation. I think they've realized that was a mistake. What they want to do is they said the feds are going to fix it for us now. This is a new one I heard from someone very close to the State Department. And they said, everything's going really good. The employment numbers are up, and a lot of people dropped from unemployment. And now the feds, they can higher the tax rate or interest rate, and that'll fix it. So now they're throwing it off on the feds. And we'll have to see how that works out for them. The governor, oh boy, this is a good one. The governor is demanding Biden pay for 100% of the wildfire damages after revelation his administration started a mega fire. The residents of New Mexico, when Biden administration took what should have been a beneficial action, they unleashed an unprecedented disaster. It appears the largest wildfire in Mexico in history was caused. Oh, my page jumped. Oh boy. Now where am oh boy. Okay, they unleashed an unprecedented disaster. It appears the largest wildfire in Mexico in history is caused by the federal U.S. Forest Service in response. The New Mexico governor, Michelle Grisham, has demanded the federal government pay for 100% of the recovery cost. It was reported by Las Cruces Sun News. The U.S. Forest had started fires in what were supposed to be 2 separate control burns, and Calf Canyon and Hermit Peak. They lost control over the burns, and the fires joined together to start a mega fire, which has raged across 500 square miles and has destroyed the estimate of 330 homes. So the planned burn was supposed to limit destructive fires by clearing away combustible underbrush and fallen trees. If executed properly, it assists in containing the spread of wildfires. However, in the Biden administration, nothing gets executed properly. And Biden can't even get through a speech without errors. And well, thank God he didn't speak on this one. So instead of doing this right and doing it early on and many, many years ago under the Obama administration, when they cut the um, the underbrush and fallen trees burn, they stopped it. They said that it was ruining the ecosystem. So they let it all build up. And so now we're looking at for them to even get control of it. It's a major underbrush burn. And unfortunately, it started a huge fire in New Mexico. So yeah, they should pay for 100% of this fire. Um, Corn and soybean um, we're having problems with our farmers right now. And it's bad news for grocery prices. The farmers in Michigan have seen fertilizer prices soar 60% just over the last year's figure. The average of 2,000 acres of corn and soybean farm has seen their fertilizer bill increase $175,000. And this is according to the Michigan Farm Bureau. Uh, the fertilizer price adds financial woes to the farmer who, like many Americans, have suffered inflation rate that's just out of control. And the country is reeling from the partly because the Biden administration misguided economic policies. And that's the same way with that wildfire. We're looking at the same thing. Their policies are so bad, it's causing heartache, not only with the wildfires, but with what we see with the farmers as well, and the oil. And they call them in for a hearing only to try to embarrass them, blame them. And of course, it all feeds right back to the state the State Department. It goes back to the Biden policies. So on Wednesday, Michigan legislator passed a bill authorizing state Republican CARA, requesting Congress, federal agencies, and the State Departments to do something about the ongoing prices increase and shortages hurting Michigan farmers. They said the prices have been increasing in the last 13 years. They said they seen part of a relief under the Trump administration, but now it has went up, almost doubled. So look forward to more prices going up. And that's such a heartache. All right. So stomach churning video shows Texas school shooter holding a bag of dead cats with a sick smile on his face. Oh boy. These shooters have got mental issues. I wish they would just quit blaming the guns and start looking at the real cause. Get Camilla Harris to look at the root cause, because the root cause is people that are mental. And so, yeah, this is a new twist. And just prior to the incident, the shooter um, shot his grandmother, who remains in stable condition. But um, in newly discovered video footage, he's seen showing off a bloody bag full of dead cats. Yeah, so he's a sick individual. But most of these shooters and mass shooters, even serial killers, they kill small animals. Uh, they're watching a lot of court TV. I watched a lot of them serial killers, and they're all mental, and they all either torture or kill small animals. So wow, that's something. All right, so Top Gun, and they're calling him the Maverick. We had um, everybody is kind of going to the movies and watching it. But what has happened is over in Japan, they had um, um, a individual. Let's see, I'm trying to get the guy's name. Anyway, they were having um, a flyover of Taiwan, and Japan was watching it as well as Taiwan, of all of these planes coming from China, and they were flying really super low. Well, what had happened is off the battleship. Let's see. Let's see here. Um, I thought I seen his name earlier today. Um, anyway, um, what it was is that there was a guy that's like a Top Gun flyer, and he went up and he fired upon CCP and drove him off. And so they're calling him the Top Gun and the Maverick, Top Gun Maverick. So they are now starting to send airplanes up whenever they do these low sorties over Taiwan. And they said they have to because it's getting really intense and they fly lower each time. So that's something. Oh boy. So, oh, now this one I'm really going to have to watch on because this is a huge warning. Of Cybersecurity Agency releases a warning about the Dominion machines. Um, they said they thought they were very secure, but now as they're going over and getting ready for the next time they're used, they're finding issues with the Dominion machines. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, what Dominion machines are, and we use them, in November, and then we do our primaries in uh, close to April and June. So that's what's going on, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on this that um, they're used in 16 different states. Let's see if, and they said that um, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency, or CISA, said there's no evidence the flaws in the Dominion machines equipment have been exploited after results have been tallied. The advisory is based on testing by prominent computer scientists whose expert witnesses in a long-running lawsuit that is unrelated uh, and um, and pushed by many of those looking into those machines. Oh boy, this is something. Maybe I shouldn't have grabbed this one today, but I thought it was important. The fact checkers are going to go wild with this. This came out with Red State, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post it in the chat there so everybody can go back and read it for in its entirely entirety. Um, and that way you can see exactly what it has to say about it. So if you're watching, it'll be there for you. So now on with this report, that the special report. Um, I spent a lot of time, updates. The first day we did socialists in the connection with that. And yesterday I got you guys going a little bit more. Today is where's the money? And that's been a big question of mine for a very long time. And my viewers know this. And so if you're just watching us, every so often, when we want to send money to Ukraine or anywhere else by the millions, billions, I want to know where the money's going. And I also start looking and questioning when, because when we pass budgets, and you go back and look at what they spent it on, it's really stupid things, very frivolous stuff that this country doesn't need. We need prices down. We need gas prices down. And so it really irks me when they spend millions and billions or send it to another country uh, for them to spend. It's very disheartening to me. So I spent a lot of time over the last 8 months um, looking into this, and I'm finding it's paid off with recent revelations that's been given to me. And the lies that's not working with the American people anymore. Now, I'm only going back to Burisma because this is a lot of the exposure and a lot of the documents that they haven't gotten rid of, destroyed, shredded, whatever, burned. Uh, and you could still get a hold of them. And, most people are tired of Burisma and Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, the laptop, and everything that has to go with it. I'm sick of it. And because we have a final piece of the puzzle now that I've been working on, and and it's on a document. Now, this document opens up a whole new world of impeachment and is now over. Um, they tried to do with Donald Trump and his impeachment on Burisma, the phone call, Russia, 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 and all that. But and he was acquitted of it, and we moved beyond that. But the corruption is it's time to look into what led up to this and why the Democrats are so offensive. Um, and covering up and lying and I say cheating and everything that goes along with it to cover up what we were seeing going on in Ukraine. And my whole thing is, why are we in Ukraine? Well, it's starting to make a lot of sense. And so from the very beginning, we're trying to get to the bottom of what's really going on between the Democrats and Ukraine. And it's because I've seen so many going over there. And now we have the GOP, Mitch McConnell, and uh, Lindsey Graham. No, Lindsey Graham. He was already over there. And why are we over there? Why do they keep going over there? Well, how come they're not in China trying to prevent the war over in Taiwan? No, they're all still taking turns going over to Ukraine. Well, what are they expecting to solve? Or are they trying to cover up something? And as I look at these same politicians that are going over there, I see them making a lot of money for this. And so um, it has taken me about 4 months when we started covering up the coordination and the ties between the Democrats and Ukraine. Now, eventually, it's taken 4 months to uncover uh, between Ukraine and the DNC. And now this is back in the Obama administration of the government in Ukraine. And they were to weaponize their relationship, influence politicians. And we showed how terrified the left has become uh, of this. Anything that goes over and starts investigating Ukraine, they lose it. And there's chaos over here. And I'm noticing that every time stuff is uncovered, let's don't look over here. Look over here at all this chaos that's happening. And we've also learned over the last few days of the gangs and the thugs that are getting away with stuff. Now, one of the biggest thing that came to light yesterday is the biggest misinformation by our media, and right around times of campaigns. And I've never seen uh, and then I've never seen anything full magnitude of what's going on, and they have a reason to be scared. The State Department, their proxies like George, and our intelligence, deep state, sowing chaos all over the world, and Ukraine um, was just a small part of it. But today's show is almost an overlay of everything else. And I think just as a side benefit of what we found out explains everything. Now, there's documents that led us to this final piece. And it led us to of how all of this could have happened with so many DNC Democrats involved. And I have a problem with all of it because we see people like Kerry showing up and begging for money for Ukraine. Not only that, but for Iran. So it almost makes me say, maybe I ought to look into Iran next, because why are they getting so much money and what are they using it on? Is it the same deal as we've seen with Burisma? And what I'm talking about, this has led to a massive money laundering racket, and they're using your money. And I believe I cannot only accuse the Treasury Department, but we'll be able to prove um, um, all of this. And you can't but take your right to believe that with documents this is true. And how come the media, even Fox News, not even tell us about this? And I believe at the end of this hour you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. I know I leave you lost at the beginning. So the Obama administration fought an unauthorized war without the authorization of Congress by laundering money. Your money. I believe I've uncovered like an Iran Contra part two. And, I did a huge investigation on Iran Contra, and I think this is worse. Um, and after today, you will know exactly why President Trump was so interested in Joe and Hunter Biden. And you'll know also why he delayed the military funding, and it had nothing to do with politics. They overlap, yes. And they, of course, um, it leads to Joe Biden mostly, but how he maybe even used his son. Um, they are very small fish compared to the bigger, larger investigation of the two. And important questions of all of this is about the money. This started about an unauthorized war. And what am I talking about? Do you realize that we had been a part of Ukraine war since 2008? I bet a lot of you didn't know that. And we've been sending the money for the military to fight the Russians since then. And of course it wasn't okayed with Congress. But that's what they've been doing. So we have been shelling them money until Trump got in office. And when Trump got in office, everything stopped. But when Biden got back in, and of course, we seen Afghanistan, now we're moving into Ukraine. And now all this money's going again. So we kind of have to go all the way back to the leaked phone call of July 25th. And it doesn't bring me any joy to tell you the things that I'm going to have to tell you today, but someone's got to tell the truth. We worked really hard, relentless hours on this. I mean, I've had this stuff basically little notes over the years, but I've worked really hard on this for hours last week and this week to bring this information and try our best to get it right. Now, there was a Cheryl Atkinson in Washington, and we were able to have some questions put before her from some of my sources at the Capitol. And she basically was working on it. She told us that it takes her a month of an investigation, and sometimes she couldn't really get answers to my sources at the Capitol for months, but they kept going in and asking and asking. And finally, they got a lot of this info for us and a lot of the documents that she was even working on. Now, if you look at 60 Minutes, it takes them sometimes a year to do a really good investigation. And the thing is they They all have unlimited budgets. And so real quick, um, I'm not I'm not charging nobody. I'm doing this for free. I want to get the word out. And all I ask is subscribe or even add us or share it with a friend. Um, so the mainstream media is completely out of control when it's has become full on surrogates for the DNC and the Democrats. And they are blind with their hatred and rage, and they are also in the bag for ideology. And it's simply not American to act like the way they've been acting. They're even trying to pretend um, that what happened with the laptop and what happened then, oh, that's a long time ago. Let's move on, is what they want to do. But somebody has got to really bring out what they're trying to hide, and their intention is all too clear of what they're doing. And we're just going to get into the meat of what they were doing and why so many Democrats were over in Burisma at this time. And that was 2013 and again in 2015. So the phone call, that is where Democrats' deception really began. And you have to um, know that the left has been driving the narrative on um, what happened. Even January 6th, they're still driving this narrative of their opinions and their point of view. And when it comes to the right, they just they don't want to hear it or they block us. And possibly this has got to be the biggest, largest set of propaganda information or misinformation that they've hatched. And, so let's open, let's look and do kind of a overhaul look of the Democrats' lie. So we started on January 25th phone call that, and we seized on a few key phrases. Four things that bothered me that stuck out, and I discussed these. Did that phone call bug you guys like there was something missing, or were they talking in code, or that kind of got me. Now, for instance, CrowdStrike was one of them. This is where the narrative of he believes in the conspiracy theories and he thinks Russia. This is where it literally came from. Now, uh, now we've heard CrowdStrike before, you know, and here it is all the way into this phone call also. And quite honestly, I didn't know what to think. But I'm like, why would Trump talk about this and in certain uh, issues he was bringing up? And they discredit it like a conspiracy theory because the left is also instantly connected to the theory. And they ran stories, don't bother listening to it. And then all of a sudden, we've got this impeachment over that stupid phone call. That's CrowdStrikes. They're the ones that were doing a lot of this, and it means something entirely different. The same company, nothing like a conspiracy theory, something that's actually you could find the facts. Um, so the line in the call, basically, it didn't make sense to me at the time, but I think you're um, what the first thing he said. I think you're surrounding yourself with people, um, the sum of the same people, bad guys. So we looked for months to see who these people might be, and we found a connection to Soros. So that's where I tie Soros to what's going on. Until recently, uh, we didn't really nail it all down of what was really going on. And next, I heard uh, the prosecutor, the prosecutor was very good, and he was shut down. And making reference to Victor Shokin. Now, He's an Iranian Ukrainian, and the prosecutor general that Joe Biden hit the quid pro quo with out of the office, it's all in the same. So the paragraph again mentions bad actors involved, and it said, "quote You have some very bad people involved, who, what, um, who and what are bad actors." And finally, a sin of all sins, the president actually had the audacity to utter these two words, Biden's son. That's what got him. So from these lines and in the transcript, it bugged me. We started researching it, and the left spun a narrative about the president was chasing conspiracies theories, and it was his collusion with Russia. And so these references are all connected, every single one, to CrowdStrike. These people are surrounding the Ukrainian president. They fired the prosecutor, yes, Hunter Biden. We know now. Um, basically, it was whispered that they were getting someplace. And this was part of what came out of the laptop. And it was right in the middle of it, in this lone little sentence of a email. It says, well, now we'll be getting someplace. And I was thinking, well, what are you guys doing to get someplace? And so what the other side was feeding us was proactive on the offense. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe we're in some trouble here. Um, if what are they getting to? What are they doing? And of course, you can't really get too far. And the thing about it is, it's up to the senators in Congress that they should have looked at this. I'm talking GOP. And I called them many, many, many times. And with all the evidence in the case involving the Bidens, and I've called and I've left messages over a year ago, and maybe I made enough calls that maybe they did look. And I don't want to say it because probably wasn't me as an informant, but I think Grassley and Durham figured all of this out as well, since all my info comes from documents plus sources that led me to it. Inside Ukraine, a massive scale. Well, let's put aside the politic overlap for a minute. And Hunter Biden, if it could help the investigators to look into the theft of $1.8 billion. That's your money. This came from the United States to help them with the war. And it shouldn't, and if it's your money, why shouldn't we pursue it? And prosecutors in Ukraine wanted to give us some information on this. And they were very into, I want to say it's almost like coded messages. Mary's in here. Mary, it's Karen's birthday today. So I don't know, we might not see her. But they carefully wanted to give us a lot of info. But of course, the ambassador kept changing his mind. So basically, it was sworn statements from Ukrainian officials admitting that their agency tried to influence the media and you. The second was contacts between Democrat figures in Washington and Ukraine officials involved in gathering dirt on Donald Trump. And this is, I think, the DNC that it came from Chalupa. Do you remember her? And the Ukrainian embassy tie. The other thing that they wanted to send us was financial records showing a Ukrainian national gas company routing more than $3 million to Hunter Biden. And then they said they had records showing Joe Biden pressured Ukrainian officials to fire Shokin. Then it was correspondence to prove that the State Department and the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine interfered in criminal cases on Ukrainian soil. The other was disbursements of as much as $7 billion that may have been misappropriated, but the money disappeared. And they said, seeing that we can't find it, they think it's taken out of the country and not by the president. Now, when I look at that, I saw them all as one, but I started looking at it differently, and we realized that these 6 pieces of evidence, they are grouped this way on purpose. And 2, they're dealing with Ukraine's efforts to influence what was happening in 2016. And we've covered that extensively. But now the points 3 through 6, the millions that were routed through Hunter Biden and the firing of Shokum. Mary, did you know about that? That in the midst of all that mess, that and viewers, did you guys know? Did you ever hear anything about that? Where $3 billion was missing. And then they found out that they had given it to Hunter Biden. Then there's still money missing. In the case of the missing $7 billion, one thing is possible. The largest and most successful money laundering racket in history, and what I believe is a proxy war under the Obama administration without the authorization of Congress. A lot of people weren't aware of this. Now, this war was in 2015 too. So the war actually started with the U.S. involved, started years ago, back in 2008. We've poured billions into what is now missing. But is looking into it, they have haphazardly, well, it was here or it was there, or we spent it on the military, or they're coming up with this excuses, but no receipts. So $7 billion is gone. And now think on that. That's not pocket change. Boy, I'm itchy. And I don't want to keep coughing. There is more money than Ukraine has allotted for their annual defense budget. So what I'm saying is, in 2008, we were sending them millions of dollars for the war. It started in 2008. So we've been sending them millions of dollars over all these years to fight the war as a proxy war. And so they can't say that this war just started here, a few months ago? No, I think what they're trying to do is cover up what I'm about to tell you guys that we've been able to find. It's actually over 2 billion more than Ukraine used to defend their own country against Russia. In the act now think on this. An active war in Venezuela currently has an iron grip on the poor, and Maduro keeping everyone in check with payoffs to his military. And with less than 10% of what this is, so he puts out 10% to the people, and then 90% goes to his military. And that's what I was thinking they were doing. So think on this. So where is billions that we're sending now going? It kind of makes you wonder. So back then, less than 10%, 800,000 in cash. Imagine what someone could do with $7 billion. So we sent them approximately $800,000 in cash quite a few times. It almost sounds like the pallets of money that go to Iran. This is what I was kind of thinking. And we've sent now, it seems like closer it gets to exposing the Democrats, the more they send to Ukraine. Is that a coincidence? And this regime is possibly altering money. Now, here's the kicker. A large portion of that missing money is yours, the taxpayer money. And then January, And now we've moved into April and May. All that money that you guys have earned is now being sent over there. And when we ask for receipts or where this money is gone, they're not telling us. And so I'm starting to wonder, is it still going on today? Because, like I said just a few minutes ago, every time it seems like they're uncovering what the Democrats have been doing in Ukraine, the more they want more money to send to Ukraine. And um, so does it go to the government? What does Uncle Sam do with it? But not only that, but they're laughing at every one of them, or they're smirking when they talk about high prices. And this should be making you really mad. And millions to an army that are socialist Nazis. Now, tell me, as a taxpayer, if the president is about to make a decision to send more cash, let's say billions again. What about 400 million and more into the military aid, which I know now they're not wanting to send anything. And why all of a sudden? Okay, we're going to give them all this money, and then here this week, oh well, maybe we better not send any money. Why don't we hold off, and we're not going to give you any rockets or missiles? No, we're not going to do that. Why? If they have been sending Ukraine and their presidents that have been corrupt since 2008, millions and millions and billions and billions, why stop now? Maybe because they're being caught. We, from the Democrats, they're the ones that brought us to this point of now we want some questions answered. And it's just not me. It's a lot of conservative reporters that are now starting to come out with this. And so Biden's son on that July 20, they were connecting the dots with Biden's son on that 25th call. And was it political, or does it have anything to do with this money that Trump may have found out about? My question is, why didn't he do anything? Why didn't he stop it? Maybe because of the Russia thing, and he ended up in the impeachment. He had all these Russian, I call them oligarchs, well, no, these Russian and Ukrainian crooked um, uh, whistleblowers that got up in front of Congress and just lied. And they were all part of it. That's the whole thing. These were all people that was all a part of it. And I'm kind of wondering how much money they made. And so at this point, everyone knows that Hunter Biden was sitting on the board of Ukraine energy company called Burisma. We know that Joe Biden and had the prosecutor in Ukraine fired while he was investigating Burisma. And now Hunter Biden, how do we know that Burisma was corrupt? And this is a crucial question. And it all began with a wire transfer of $23 million back in 2014. It wasn't the US. It was, guess who? The British government. And they noticed as soon as Ukraine regime fell, the head of Burisma and the one that was taken out at this time was Joel Oskowski, and the money was transferred. He, according to what he claims, was $23 million to a bank of London. And the Brits immediately froze the accounts because they followed the money. I mean, $23 million, if you can transfer, that would be a really big deal. And it should be a really big deal. And we should have paid notice that this 23 million got frozen. And so the 23 million, it was a big deal, but they got around it. And this is critical for you to understand because you're going to see the pattern again with the funds. It originated in Ukraine via um, let's just say it's a shell company, okay? Um, and it was sent to this phony company, okay? It was sent to Cyprus. The 23 million went to Cyprus to these like little gas. I'm just going to call them little. They're not gas stations. These are just little companies that have nothing. They like have a lady that's sitting in a room with a telephone, um, and it's something that really doesn't exist. Um, it doesn't, like I was telling you, it doesn't have anything. And now they took the money, they put it into the shell company. Now that was a flag, and it should have been. If you want to move very large amounts of laundered money, this is how it's done. Uh, it traveled to the bank in Lativa, and now it's in Cyprus. I'm sure they have a bank with a branch, right? Maybe. Uh, and so it's going to Latvia, and and you have the money there. And it was known that a few Eastern Bloc countries that have very low regulations and in the world that knows money, it's going into these banks. And this bank is known as the World Bank. And if you're going to launder money, um, it would basically be dirty money, right? You put it in the bank, and then they send it over to this Lativa Bank, the World Bank, and they clean the money, and that's money laundering. And they make it clean, and then they can put it in these new little fake companies, right? And you realize that Bill Barr went to UK first on a trip. Then he went to Cyprus, and then he went to Europe, which I didn't understand, to look into something. But you know what? We never found out what he found. Mary, do you remember that? Remember when Bill Barr went? Him and I think it was Durham and a few others. They went over to the UK at first, and they were looking around the UK, and then they ended up in Cyprus. And I went, bingo! There's that bank. There's that bank. And I really thought I was so happy. I was like, they're going to find the money. That's where they're going to find this money. But he never said anything, and I'm suspicious of this with Bill Barr now. Um, the case of Burisma has continued on and off until up to date, but the money was frozen. Remember the 23 million, while in the UK was looking into it and tracking it. And if it wasn't for the UK to track this money and release their documents, we probably wouldn't have known about all of this because we would have had to depend on Bill Barr to give us the information, and he didn't. And then they had frozen the accounts, and the government knew it. They knew it. That money had been frozen that was supposedly belonged to Hunter Biden when he joined Burisma and on the board. Well, maybe Dad didn't tell him that they were going to move money around, because that's what the documents are showing, is that Joe Biden was a big part of this. And I don't think that's that it could be possible. I don't know if they're blaming him particularly. I think it was the government that was there, because if it was, wouldn't he warn his son that, hey, you're being watched? No, he stayed there for a couple of years till he got caught. So it's a possibility that Joe Biden didn't know about this. But his new company being investigated for stealing and money laundering was also apparent. Um, and it did get to Washington. It did get into the hands of Obama. And obviously, the two of them really didn't mind. The primary owner of Burisma is a guy named Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky. And I've told you about him before. He was a U.S. visa, he was on the visa banned list. And this is where I knew Obama knew and did nothing, because a lot of them gained a lot of money, and members of the Democrat Congress and Senate at this time. And once we started looking into Burisma, we get a different picture. Now, this Kolmosky, why is he banned from traveling to the United States, um, or do any type of business in the United States? Why don't we do that to George? Um, it's because he was on a banned list from the United States. Forget the what did they not look at? He's part of a militia group that murders and beheads people. He's hiring thugs and militants. Also, he was the one that was paying the Azov battalion. And so what were they doing that was so horrible that we banned him from? The murders and the beheadings, but they used chainsaws to do it. He used to keep them all supplied with chainsaws. Good grief. And not only that, but they were using force to intimidate companies that were owned by Russians in Ukraine. And this guy seems to be like a Tony Soprano or something. This guy's really bad, folks. And it didn't faze either Biden or Obama at this time. And wouldn't you know it, a few months later, this guy was banned for arming rowdies with chainsaws, performing beheadings with them, and he all of a sudden a brand new visa, and he was allowed into the U.S. Would he clear this guy with such a violent background? And why would Obama do this? That's more importantly, what I think is important is, why did they let this guy in? What did he have, or what was he doing that they wanted to not let the truth come out? I think they did it to bribe him. And I just want to say real quick, I think Biden loves his son. I think he loves his family, and he's out for protection. But at this point, why didn't he stop all this? You love your son, you love your family, you don't put your son, and it was Biden that got him into this position. It wasn't like Hunter Biden decided, oh, I'm going to go work for some oil company and named Burisma in the middle of Ukraine, and I've never been there in my life. No, it was Joe Biden that got him in here. And so this is where I know for sure that he knew about this guy, Mowinsky. And I believe Obama knew about it too. And it looks really suspicious, like Biden's were legitimizing, but not only that, but protecting a billionaire thug. So basically, they gave him the keys to the castle for the United States. He can go anywhere he wants. And not only that, they endorsed him to do business in our country. Why in God's great earth would they let this guy in this country? It made, that's the one thing when I was looking into people that were a part of this phone call and stuff, and I was like, what were they thinking? And now when I look back on it, I was like, yeah, they're that dumb. Yeah, they didn't. Is this guy threatening them? Is he what? No. It comes to find out they were actually bribing him to keep his mouth shut. I wouldn't be surprised if the guy came up dead. Stranger things have happened, and this wasn't even Hillary or Arkansas. So basically, Joe Biden is supposed to love this country, and yeah, I'm starting to think that just ain't the case. And so you have to assume that their whole family was okay with everything that was going on, and such a corrupt country like Ukraine, and this is why. Um, you know, they got their militias, they've got their separatists, they've got this Azov battalion, they've got an army, they've got people with chainsaws that's beheading people. That's why Trump was saying it was corrupt. And you got to believe it because now it's all coming out. And all of this is happening uh, uh, as as the point man for Ukraine and the Secretary State, John Kerry, began lobbying for $1.8 billion in aid package to go to Ukraine, specifically to stabilize their banking system. And your tax dollars, not only in 2008 went to bail out the banks, but under that same bill, we're looking at that we sent money to Ukraine to bail their banks out. So in 2008, we actually bailed all of our bankers out. But, and in that little small print, the little itty bitty small print that they add to stuff, to these bills, was to bail out Ukraine's banks. Why would they do that? Why was Ukraine Bank so bad in 2008? The war had just started. And so they got 1.8 billion to bail the Ukrainian banks out. And guess what? They lost that money. They put it in a bank, and it should have been a profit, but it makes you wonder, when it disappeared, um, where's that money? I mean, did it jump to Cyprus and other places? No, because that wasn't really dirty money. So where did that money go? And we send Iran pallets full of money that Kerry pushes for. And Kerry's had been pushing for Ukraine money since 2008. And remember, this is all happening of the time of the Obama administration. Uh, and then refused to give Ukraine lethal military aid close to the time of the election. Um, and he didn't want to antagonize the Russians. He didn't want to send that type of message. That policy uh, remained up until President Trump got in, when he greenlighted the military aid and missile system. And then he stopped. He stopped midway in this and actually didn't send it. So this is one of the things that bugged me during the impeachment. Do you remember the Democrats, how they kept saying Trump was putting the Ukrainians, in danger and responsibility, that it was him that was wanting to start and fight a war with Russia? And you literally, um, when you look at it, you literally look at Obama going, he was going to send them blankets. He's sending them millions and billions and thousands of dollars here and there. And then all of a sudden, when Trump's going to come in office, oh, we're going to do blankets. Was it to get Trump to send the millions, and then it would be Trump's fault? That's the only thing I could think of. That makes no sense. And so, okay, so we send the money, and now the $1.8 billion. Well, I'm guessing nearly $2 billion flowed from the U.S. Treasury to the bank in Ukraine. And that's the last time anyone's ever seen it. We have got like a ledger, like I don't know, a deposit slip, or where are, from the State Department. Now, official George Kent, he was also an impeachment witness against the Trump. Now, the letter that he was responding with the Ukrainian prosecutor general, who was claiming that the U.S. provided funds that were being allocated improperly. Um, they're trying to figure out that you've lost a lot of money here and there, and we're investigating. And he says, this is what his response was. I'd like to make it clear that the United States has no concerns about the use of our funds for our joint project with the Prosecutor General's office. Furthermore, we have also said publicly none of the assistant funds were provided directly to any entity within the Prosecutor's General's office. We have accounted for every single foreign assistant dollar provided within the framework of this project, and that is our practice for every project. And they support Ukraine and are completely satisfied with the assistance in. Well, we find out that's wrong, that was a lie. And not only has it been used for the purposes that I've stated, I don't see any grounds that they even assisted or even investigated of where this money went, because he would have known. It would have been a red flag. But you look at it and say, well, wait a minute now. He was against Trump. He made up lies. He's got to be a part of this. So now we're looking at this guy also being in the middle of this money that just disappeared. I'm not really, I'm not sure. I still haven't really found out where the $1.8 billion went. And not only that, because, they deposited into a private bank. Now that's the Ukrainian state bank. And it's important that this bank that handles all payrolls for both government officials and the military, and we're talking Ukraine, not ours. So now this is like a private bank. And see, this is what I thought was fishy. So we paid off all their banks, and then we had this World Bank that a lot of this money was going into until real close to 2015, where it became a private bank now. And it was for our government money to go into, plus payrolls for both the government officials and the military. And guess who? Oh, you'll never believe who the co-founder of this bank is, or the guy that owns this bank, and the ownership. Mary, can you guess who this was? Can you guess who it was, guys? If you're thinking over there, who would control this bank? It wasn't Hunter Biden. It wasn't Joe Biden. None other than Cole Lewinsky. That same guy with the vroom, vroom, with the chainsaws that was beheading people. So we're sending all this money to a bank to a thug that now owns banks because we let him off the hook and we're letting him wander around. And this is the same guy that that the U.S. under Obama just released. He's open for business, don't you know? Despite of the chainsaws, I'm just thinking, look at the crime rate over here in the country, and I'm thinking, how many, is there a private bank that they're paying all these thugs to have high crime rate in our country? And then are we going to give them banks to go along with it? And they say, well, he's open for business. And I'm like, oh, do you know he had chainsaws, all right. So, oh boy, I got to catch my thoughts there, because that's horrible. So this guy with the bank, he was implicated in a lot of money laundering rings, and also with Hunter Biden, and knowing this. And so get this. So this Molinsky, not only does he own Burisma and the big oil supply for the country, he's got his thugs and this militant group that he pays, and he buys them chainsaws, and they're all going around and they're thugging and driving out Russians that own businesses on the east side of Ukraine. And you wouldn't, can we guess which country or which uh, I call them states. Can you guess what states they were? It's the ones that Putin is taking right now and says that it's all Russians. Well, now we have this in the State Department that's listed that this is true. So now we know that here these thugs with chainsaws were going around to Russian people that owned Russian businesses and drove them out. And then they started driving them out of their homes also. And so, and it's this guy, and he owns Burisma, and he owns the gas. So, knowing this, a few weeks later after that, the State Department then lifts the travel ban because Joe Biden asked for it. And after Joe Biden, if he does that, he's gone, he's fired. We've seen that clip. Well, that guy that he was talking about was fired. So a few months after that, John Kerry lobbied for $1.8 billion to be delivered directly into this bank. And then it just goes poof. It's gone. So, well, if a thug has a bank and you give him 1.8 billions and he's a thug and a crook, yeah, you kind of expect that money's going to disappear. So is it his fault? Is it this Molinsky guy that is stealing the money? Um, what do we know about this billionaire thug ring? And apparently has untold amounts of funds hidden away and vast money laundering rackets around the world as well. Let me tell you something else. A month before Hunter Biden joined the board, 2 months before the travel ban lifted by Obama administration, um, Kolominsky was appointed a governor in eastern Ukraine. I think it was right around Donbass. How does that happen? Yeah, So he's the governor too. Wow, look, all this neat stuff happening to this guy, and he's running the front lines on Russia basically, and where the war was raging. Despite pushing Obama to arm the Ukrainians, we don't know if he remained in that power or not, and anything to antagonize Russia. So, and this is what they were trying to do. This is what they're claiming now: is this thug Molinsky was trying to irritate um, Russia into a bigger war, so they could go to extreme war. Uh, and start a war between the United States and Russia. So to antagonize him, this guy was saying in a statement that the blankets really made Russia mad. And so a side note, if you're the president um, saying you really don't want to piss off Putin, um, then how do you explain the relationship between the vice president's son and Kolominsky, a bunch of chainsaws and $1.8 billion directly into his bank that has disappeared? And you think Putin can't figure this out? Well, I don't think Putin and his resources um, was trying to let them get away with this. But every time Putin speaks out about it, he's shut off by the West. And, no wonder they have been attacking um, what we do over here. We're in a proxy war with them at this time. And you can make a charge forever on this guy. But what I question is Kolominsky is known inside Ukraine, inside Russia, as an oligarch who bankrolled Ukrainians' money. But then he turned around and he is funding the Ukrainian war. And that's a direct quote from the president of Ukraine. And also, it was re-mentioned by the Obama administration and the State Department that backed it. Okay, that is something that's very crucial. And what it does is it shows you that it backs this war up with the United States involved. Now, this is backing it up to right about 2013. But then we start looking at the money with Kerry involved, of getting money and raising money and keeping it kind of a secret all the way back to 2008. So what that tells you, remember I keep telling you the war's been going on since 2008. I just didn't realize we were funding that war since 2008 until some recent documents came out of Judicial Watch. So pushing for policy appointed rich oligarchs as governors, especially in the areas that were threatened by war, with Russian separatists to finance the war effort because they didn't have any money at the time, and no, the army had nothing in the bank. So Kolomiski, the guy who owns the bank, who uses private funds, is now funding a private army that he is already done with chainsaws. And now he's doing it for real. He was able to travel around and do business everywhere because he was legitimized by both Obama and Ukraine. So he could allegedly fight with the Russians. And here's what we do know for sure, that he provided equipment and fuel for the Ukrainian army. He began the financing for private volunteer battalions on the front line. And one battalion in particular is, they think, is linked to, they said, these are 2,000 combat ready troops that were trained by the Z. And when they looked into the Z, what it was the Azov. And so what they did is, in payment for these guys fighting a lot of the war in 2008 to 2013, they gave them the steel plant. They also, we have the Azov Sea. So basically, they gave them this plant, and they gave them banks, and they gave them different things all over Ukraine. Now, what's really weird is everywhere these oligarchs are, that these $1 million oligarchs are, is the places that Putin has been bombing. And all of these residential neighborhoods that's been being hit on the eastern side is all the neighborhoods where these oligarchs live. So doesn't it make a little bit of sense why Putin is doing that? Not only that, he bombed all of their biolabs. He was hitting all of their banks. He hit, like I said, and then went after the steel plant. Why? Because the steel plant was taken away from the people and given to these militant guys with chainsaws. So does this kind of make a little bit of sense to everybody of what's building up? If you guys have questions, Friday night I am gonna bring William in, and we'll be able to answer all the questions you guys have. You might have to go back and listen to this again to get some questions. But this you guys can see now why Putin was so fed up, and he said there's Nazis in the West. Well, he was right. He was right to claim that, because it was. This was a big part of Ukraine in 2008, and then it wasn't even. Now we're in 2022, and Putin is never stopped saying this. He has always said they took away those states that belonged to Russia and the Russian people. He was going to take them back, and he wouldn't go any further. Well, to me, war is horrible anyway. And if this is only a part of the Minsk agreement, he basically, I feel, has the right to do this. But I'm gonna move on with this. So, the front line of this battalion, we're talking. What did you get left out again, William? Who did that to you this time? I'll have to look. I have a funny feeling they're squirrely with me on these shows. So these what they ended up doing is this frontline battalion in particular. They sent several thousands, and they got more in reserve. And the millions of dollars flows from Kolominsky's bank account straight into the war with Russia. Now, the problem with this at the time was these are guys that were fighting separatists and a small militia, and mostly people that lived in these communities. So it was civilians that were trying to protect themselves against this army that had everything that they needed to fight and start a war. So, um, so basically, this there was a lot of these oligarchs that had control of these banks. They were private banks, and it was mentioned only that they belonged in these cities um, that were eventually taken over. So really something really weird happened on in September 2019. Um, but I'll come back a little later and tell you about it for sure. I could tell you the facts. I could tell you that the facts that for sure that this 1.8 bought arms and military equipment for the Azov army, and it goes all the way back to um, um, when, and this is about the time that Belarus was starting to see something going on. And when they were asking for military equipment, they were starting to see that this battalion had some serious military equipment. Now, how did they get it? And so they were asking about it, and they started getting involved. Now, so the administration or the deep states basically know that money did not buy um, blankets. Sure didn't buy blankets, and it was never there enough for us to look at a sheet to say exactly what was bought. Now, get this: when Congress wasn't going to pass this $40 billion that they've wanted to send lately, um, Biden said, "I'll go to China and borrow it." And now, how many times have we borrowed if they couldn't fit it into a bill to where, the GOP would see it or they secretly couldn't do it like Kerry was doing? I have a feeling that this is one of their main sources is going to China. And it makes a lot of sense because look how quick he said it. Well, I'll just go China and get it. He didn't put thought into it. Maybe I need to look around and see who I could get this money from. No, it was right off. He was going to go get it from China. Um, so this laundered money by a guy who's been implicated, and I know if I don't want to rub that in too much. He was financing the war against Russia, and this is how the U.S. aid money was being spent. And it was used to stabilize not only the banks, but was used by a thug to buy tanks, come to find out. It doesn't really seem like a kind of a big deal right now. I mean, especially if you know what's happening under the table. And all without the approval of Congress. What if this didn't have anything to do with um, what we've seen with the changing of presidents, um, and then bringing in Russia? I think that was just a really big smoke screen, kind of like a side thing, so you wouldn't know that was something was really happening over in Ukraine. Because at this time, more and more was coming out with people like Rush Limbaugh and Tucker Carlson, um, Mark Levin. They were all starting to talk about what's going on with Burisma and all this money that's over there, and how much money is Biden and the family and his son getting. Um, so basically, I'm getting close to time for cutoff. Um, we sent them tanks, we sent them military gear, we sent them guns, we sent them shielding, it says. I'm not sure what the shielding is. Um, and it's all, it was all sent from the United States to Hunter Biden to the Ukrainian banks, private banks. So if you're going to have free reign of all of our money and to be able to spend it where you want, what else have they been spending this money on? So let's see. So this was, you say, well, that doesn't sound like money laundering, but no, as we move along, I'll start showing you how it was put through Burisma and that it was safe in those banks. It didn't become dirty until they pulled it and shipped it off trying to get it into UK, but come to find out they couldn't. So what they did, they had the guy with the chainsaws basically would move the money over to Cyprus. So if this guy has got to remove money from Hunter Biden that he thought he was making legally, why take that clean money and try to put it in through Cyprus, which is cleans dirty money only? So which tells you that this money that they took was our money that shouldn't have been there, and that we knew nothing about. Congress didn't know nothing about. Nobody knew nothing about this money until Trump got into office. Now, Kolominsky, he now they made him into a legitimate billionaire by the time 2015 rolled around. It wasn't until Zelensky and Trump got in office that all of a sudden he started, oh, wait a minute, I'm just going to see ya, folks, and cleared out his bank and he left. But you know what? They still allow him to go places. And we're thinking that could be where that money went. The question everybody should be asking right now, how far up the chain of command did this go? Because Joe Biden and Hunter Biden were like doing this proxy war. And it was approved by the highest echelons of the administration. Because, and you want to know why I know this, is because Secretary State Kerry, quote, this is what he said, I was deeply involved in all of this in the administration. We're trying to get rid of that prosecutor from Obama. And the Secretary of State and the Vice President, all of us were working on that ambassador to get rid of him. And if we knew Ukraine was going to survive and win this revolution and the end of Maidan, then we have to get rid of that prosecutor, end quote. Okay, now this was before 2015 he said this. So we know that Kerry and Obama and Biden, the whole administration knew what was going on over there. So did Congress and Senate, come to find out. And, but did you catch it? Firing Ukraine's prosecutor general, the man following the laundering of money through Burisma. And Hunter Biden, it was important that they fire him. Why? And basically, during the revolution, they said. So this really does go all the way back. And we could see that that it was a secret plot to take Putin down. And this was all the way back to 2008. And finally, to track down that 1.8. Do you think maybe the American people should know that that you have basically crushed and lied and not even telling us the truth anymore? But not only that, you have to look at the Democrat that were a part of this. And, believe this stuff, either something is wrong at the time and what happened to our money, or is it simple misinformation that's in document form? Well, I tend to believe the documents. And all over the world, we're trying to say Kolominsky's web was built to stay off the radar way into the war between Ukraine and Russia. And this goes back to 2015 investigative journalist named Nashi Groshi released information that pulled the curtain back on spawning the money laundering racket. And I really want to show you how this works, but I'm going to save it till tonight. Um, there's more, folks. There's more. Just when you were saying, well, look at the corruption that was talked about, and then you look back at Trump's phone calls to Zelensky when he said there's some really bad actors there, and they're still there. Well, they never left. Why leave when they're all making some money? They're in the money. Um, so I hope this is. I'm getting farther along so you guys can understand what's happening or what happened and why Burisma was very important to the Biden family. Uh, because the money from the State Department would go not to always a bank, but it would go into Burisma. And that's what went wrong. They when it goes to supposed to be a government bank. So Molinsky was already there. Then he all of a sudden was owning banks. Remember, he went to the United States and he went back. He opened up all these banks, and then the money started going in there. But the thing about it, it had other government and military payouts that were going to the crooked part of Ukraine. So that's why Trump didn't want no part of it when he got in. Yeah, he sent him aid, but then he backed out. And then you notice he never sent him no money after that. So that is it for today. I'll be back tonight with the rest of this. There's still, like I said, there's still more. There's still more what they were doing over there. This is just a little thing. Well, not little, because they stole 8 billion. They stole 1.8 billion. And look at all the money they've taken since, maybe. That's why I said I want to know where the money has went. And this right here showing you guys, this is documented stuff that now has come out because it was 2008 through 2013 to 2015. Nothing to see here, folks, is what they were saying. And people have ignored this. And I wish the media would jump on this part of the story of how they were laundering money, and this dude with the vroom vroom chainsaw buddies that they were going around beheading people. We don't see that in the United States. That's kind of a little overboard, I'd say. So, and hello to William. And just another reminder, it is Karen's birthday. So if she happens to pop in later on the show, y'all can tell her happy birthday. So with that, I will subscribe. I'm doing this because I want to. I don't ask for money, and all the investigations that I've looked into this, boy, it's a little costly of getting documents. And then I have to have the room on computers for it, because sometimes there's 4,000 pages. And if you're on a phone, it don't cut it. You have to have a really big computer to download a lot of this stuff. So subscribe, and once again, I thank you for watching. And I'm thanking a lot of people over there in Facebook land that have been sharing and adding, and lots of comments. So have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Be careful of storms. It's going across the country. I will be back tonight for the second half of this money thing. Tomorrow, I'm moving on. There's more. Yes, there's more of what's going on. And I'm letting you guys know this. It may take a while for it all to soak in, but I think everybody in our country really needs to know about what our government was doing from 2008 on. And it shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have been sending them money for a war that was never authorized by Congress and Senate. So with that, we will see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, folks.